We are living through a strange paradox. Look around you. We exist in the wealthiest era in human history. The average person today has access to luxuries that the kings of old could not even imagine. We have infinite information, global connectivity, and advanced healthcare. Yet, if you look beneath the surface, the average person is terrified. Most people, even those with university degrees, high-status job titles, and impressive salaries, are leaning forward in anxiety. They are walking on a tightrope. They are one missed paycheck away from disaster. They work for money, day after day, month after month, decade after decade. The money flows in, and the money flows out. They are conduits for cash, but they are not containers. Why is that? It is not because they are unintelligent. It is not because they lack ambition. It is because they are playing a game they do not understand. They are trying to fill a purse that has a hole in the bottom. They believe that the solution to their anxiety is earning more money, but they are wrong. If you cannot manage $1,000, you cannot manage $1 million. The amount changes, but the behavior remains the same. If you want to cure a lean purse, you do not need more luck. You do not necessarily need a raise tomorrow. You need a protocol. Today, we are beginning a masterclass series on the most important book on wealth ever written. It was published in 1926, but its wisdom is thousands of years old. I am talking about The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. We aren't just going to summarize it, we are going to deconstruct it. We are going to take the ancient 7 cures for a lean purse and turn them into a modern, automated system that you can execute this week. Welcome to the Accumulation Protocol. To understand the nature of wealth, we must travel back in time to Babylon. Babylon was not a paradise. It had no forests, no mines, no natural trade routes. It was located in an arid, flat valley. By all accounts, it should have been a poor city, and yet, it became the wealthiest city of the ancient world. Why? Because its people were the first to study the laws of money. They didn't wait for wealth to happen to them. They engineered it. In this city, there lived a man named Arkad. Arkad was the richest man in Babylon. He was famous across the land not just for his gold, but for his liberality. He was generous with his family. He gave to charity. He spent lavishly on himself. And yet, no matter how much he spent, his gold grew faster than it left him. One day, his friends from his youth came to him. These were men who had studied with him, played with him, and worked just as hard as him, but they were struggling. They said to him, "Arkad, you are more fortunate than we. You have become the richest man in all of Babylon while we struggle for existence. Yet, were we not equal once? We had the same teacher. We played the same games. And in the years since, we have been honorable citizens. We have worked hard. Why has fate singled you out to enjoy all the good things of life and ignored us who are equally deserving?" This is the question that haunts millions of people today. Why does my hard work not result in wealth? Arkad's answer to his friends is the foundation of this entire series. He looked at them and said, "If you have not acquired more than a bare existence in the years since we were youths, it is because you have either failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth, or else you do not observe them." He told them that wealth is not a mystery. It is not a result of luck or the favor of the gods. It is a result of laws. If you follow the laws, wealth is the inevitable result. If you break the laws, poverty is the inevitable result. Arkad then shared his own story. He was not born rich. He started as a lowly scribe, carving records into clay tablets for hours every day. He labored, but he had nothing to show for it. One day, a moneylender named Algamish came to the house of the city master and ordered a copy of the 9th law. He wanted it in 2 days. Arkad worked hard, but the law was long, and when Algamish returned, the work was not finished. The moneylender was angry, but Arkad, possessing a boldness born of desperation, asked him a question. He said, "Algamish, you are a very rich man. Tell me how I may also become rich." and I will carve all night long upon the clay, and when the sun rises, the writing shall be completed." Algamish smiled. He accepted the deal. Arkad worked all night. His back ached. The smell of the wick lamp gave him a headache. But when the sun rose, the tablets were finished. Algamish said, "You have fulfilled your part of the bargain, my son. Now I am ready to fulfill mine. I will tell you the secret you wish to know." Arkad leaned in, expecting a complex formula or a secret trade route. But Algamish simply said this: "I've found the road to wealth when I decided that a part of all I earned was mine to keep. And so will you." Arkad looked at him, confused. He asked, "Is that all?" Algamish replied, "It was sufficient to change the heart of a sheep herder into the heart of a moneylender." Arkad protested, "But all that I earn is mine to keep, is it not?" "No," Algamish shouted. "Do you not pay the garment maker? Do you not pay the sandal maker? Do you not pay for the things you eat? Can you live in Babylon without spending? You pay everyone but yourself. You labor for others. You are like a slave who works for his master only for food and clothes. If you kept 1/10 of all you earn, how much would you have in 10 years? This brings us to the first cure for a lean purse. Arkad later taught this in the Hall of Learning to a room full of struggling men. He asked a simple egg merchant, "If you put 10 eggs into your basket every morning and take out 9 every evening, what happens eventually?" The merchant laughed and said, "The basket will overflow." "Why?" Arkad asked. "Because every day I put in 1 more than I take out." The first cure is this: for every 10 coins thou placest within thy purse, take out for use but 9. It sounds too simple to be true. You might be listening to this thinking, "Victor, this is basic advice. I know I should save, but I can barely pay my bills as it is. How can I possibly save 10% when I am already drowning?" This is the great illusion of the modern economy. Arkad predicted this objection thousands of years ago. He asked his class, "How many of you have lean purses?" Everyone raised their hand. Yet, they all earned different amounts. Some were tradesmen, some were laborers, some were high-ranking officials. They all had different incomes, yet they all had empty purses. This proves a fundamental truth. Necessary expenses will always grow to equal our incomes unless we protest to the contrary. Think about your own life. When you earned $30,000, you spent it all. When you got a raise to $50,000, you bought a better car, moved to a slightly better apartment, and started drinking better wine. Suddenly, you were spending $50,000. If you get a raise to $100,000, you will buy a house with a larger mortgage, you will lease a luxury car, and you will put your children in private activities. You will still be broke. You will just have nicer things while you struggle. The first cure requires a psychological shift. You must pay yourself first. Not the landlord, not the grocer, not the streaming service, not the tax man. You. When you keep 1/10 of your earnings, you are not just saving money, you are building self-respect. You are making a statement to the world and to yourself that a part of your labor belongs to you, not to be spent, but to be kept. This leads us directly to the second cure. If we must save 10%, how do we survive on the remaining 90%? Arkad says, "Confuse not the necessary expenses with thy desires." We live in a hyper-consumerist economy designed to blur this line. Billions of dollars are spent on marketing algorithms to convince you that a desire is a need. Marketing convinces you that a new iPhone is a need, that a specific brand of coffee is a need, that a new outfit for an event is a need. They are not needs, they are desires. And desires are like weeds in a field. They grow wherever there is space. If you do not cut them back, they will consume the entire field. The more money you earn, the more desires will spring up to consume it. The second cure is budgeting. I know, everyone hates that word. It feels restrictive. It feels like a punishment. But Arkad reframes it. He says, "The purpose of a budget is to help thy purse to fatten. It is to assist thee to have thy most cherished desires by defending them from thy casual wishes. Think of a budget like a lighthouse. It shows you where the rocks are so your ship doesn't crash. It allows you to enjoy the 90% guilt-free, knowing that your future is already secured by the 10% you set aside. Arkad advises us to engrave our budget on clay. Today we use spreadsheets or apps. The medium doesn't matter. The act of reviewing it does. You must look at every expense and ask, is this worth 100% of the cost? Or would I rather have this money working for me in my fortress? Now, let us assume you have started the first cure. Your purse is fattening. You are controlling your expenses with the second cure. But saving alone will not make you wealthy. In fact, in our modern world, saving alone is dangerous because of inflation. Inflation steals the value of your savings every single year. $1 today buys less than $1 10 years ago. If you just hide your gold under a mattress, it dies. It slowly withers away. This brings us to the third cure. Make thy gold multiply. Arkad tells the story of his first successful investment. After his first failure, where he lost money by trusting a bricklayer to buy jewels, he learned his lesson. He then lent his savings to a shield maker named Agar. Agar used the money to buy bronze, he made shields, he sold them to the army, and he paid Arkad back with interest. Arkad said, "The gold I saved was the start, but the earnings it made were its children, and its children made children." This is the magic of compound interest. This is the transition from saver to investor. A man's wealth is not in the coins he carries in his purse. It is the income he builds, the golden stream that flows into his purse and keeps it always bulging. When you put your money to work, it works 24 hours a day. It works while you sleep. It works while you are on vacation. It works when you are sick. It does not complain. It does not ask for a raise. It simply multiplies. So, how do we turn Arkad's ancient wisdom into a modern, actionable workflow? We are going to build what I call the automated fortress. We are going to remove willpower from the equation. Willpower is weak. You will have a bad day, you will be tired, and you will forget to save. Systems are strong. Systems do not get tired. Here is your execution plan for this week. Step 1 is the invisible tax. I want you to treat your savings like a tax from the government. If the government raised your taxes by 10% tomorrow, you would complain, but you would pay it. You would adjust your lifestyle. You wouldn't starve. You would figure it out. So, impose that tax on yourself. Log into your payroll provider or your main checking account. Set up an automatic transfer for the day after you get paid. Move 10% of your gross income to a separate high-yield savings account. Name this account the Fortress. Do not link a debit card to it. Make it hard to access. If you never see that money in your checking account, you will not spend it. You will adjust your lifestyle to the 90% automatically. Step 2 is the audit. This weekend, I want you to print out your last 3 months of bank statements. Yes, print them out on paper. Take a highlighter. Go through every single line. Mark every desire that masqueraded as a need. The subscription you forgot about, the food delivery when you had groceries in the fridge, the impulse buy at the gas station. Total it up. That number is the hole in your purse. That is the wealth you threw away. Seal the leak. Step 3 is the identity shift. Stop saying I can't afford it. That is a phrase of poverty. Start saying I choose not to spend on that because I am building my fortress. This is not about deprivation. It is about prioritization. You are prioritizing your freedom over momentary pleasure. You are prioritizing the version of you 10 years from now over the version of you today. We do not consume content on this channel. We execute. Here is your challenge for the next 7 days. I want you to calculate your exact freedom number. Look at your monthly income. Calculate exactly what 10% is. Open that Fortress account if you haven't already. Move the money. If you are in debt, you might say, "Victor, I can't save. I have credit card bills." Arkad disagrees. He explicitly teaches that even when paying debts, you must keep 1/10 for yourself. It is the only way to build the psychological momentum of wealth. If you send every penny to your creditors, you remain a slave with nothing of your own. Keep the 10th. Live on the 70%. Pay debts with the 20%. We will discuss debt strategy in detail in Part 3, but the saving starts now. Do this one thing. Prove to yourself that you are the master of your gold, not its slave. Start building your fortress today, one brick at a time. In the next video, we will discuss the goddess of luck, how to spot a scam, and how to protect your fortress from crumbling when the opportunists come knocking. Class dismissed.